Hi, following on the heels of the last post where we looked at what Anthropic were doing, we today are looking at the biggest game-changing release I've seen for a long time in the marketplace. This is really going back to what Bill Gates did with Microsoft and then what Apple did with creating their Apple Store, where you had a very large organization corner of the marketplace. And that's the attempt that OpenAI are doing with Chat-GPT in dropping this on the marketplace. It's basically the equivalent of the Apple Store, not for apps, but for bots. So it's a bot store, and it's everything that you need to build one, both from the top end, the big guys, and all the way down to very small businesses. Um, it has a sting in the tail because unlike the approach that we're taking with N8N, this thing is all proprietary, and you basically get locked into this sticky environment, and effectively each of those bots acts like an independent brain, but their centralized mind, the LLM mind, will actually have a comprehension of what every bot is doing, what everything is achieving, and it will effectively skill transfer, knowledge transfer, the stuff that matters, in the same way that people used to think data was important, but it's not. It was metadata, i.e. the conclusion, the knowledge of and the information about that data. The next stage of this game is where we take information and know-how and we turn that into the knowledge of what works. The contextual knowledge of what works is the new asset. It's the new gold. So I've created a link in the post, so you can have a look at this and have a go and build something over the weekend. Just don't put stuff that matters into it too much. It's in a sense of real sensitive stuff of know-how, but it gives you an idea of what's going to happen very shortly as AI agents take over everything at the kind of app store level. And then at the top end of town, will, as Microsoft has said, they're going to stop building apps and build everything within an AI environment. And we'll see the same thing in our market sector with BIM and AutoCAD doing that, and new entrants coming in and challenging people like AutoCAD, because once you've got AI in there and you understand what it's to do, we are now at the point where AI can self-learn and self-develop and learn from experience. So it's going to be a wild ride, and it will impact us all. So I just touch on here. This is the environment that they've given. It's everything you need to basically set up an app without any coding required. The value add is you've got everything you would normally have in the app, super intelligence on working with that functionality and content in the app, plus your own contextual knowledge, the what if, the translation, what does that actually mean, and how do you leverage value from that knowledge. The trick that they've done, and this, just get your head around this, it's so cool, is rather than taking AI into the app in the interface, you keep the same interface as you see on the left. That's the design palette. And you take all your content into the AI box. So people still are talking with it, either texting on the phone or even talking. And everything is displayed inside, in this case, ChatGPT 4. So in this example, it's where you're explaining what you love about pizzas and what you'd really like and the ambience of the place, everything that's personalized. And what the third party would have done is built an agent, which, with their own knowledge of a layer on top of not just what pizza places are available, but what actually would match up with those needs. And that's just not just a case of calculation. That's understanding, deterministic logic, but that's probabilistic logic and what people would probably enjoy, what they would love, what their experience would be, and what their state change would that make them, happy. All right. And because that's what you want to know, that's what you're going for, is an experience. So that's to some degree outside the traditional way of thinking with scientists in the scientific world of civil engineering, but it's actually central to why someone funded a project in the first place of government. It's to make the population feel better about them, so they obviously vote them back in. But in terms of, say, transport, where it creates greater flow, so people have a higher quality of life, it may be that they're looking for explicit measurable KPIs on the quality of the environment. Okay, less braking, for example. So in our consulting area around value and AI, we'll be able to offer those sorts of services as well. So just giving you an overview of what's in the platform, I mean, it's really, really impressive. And it's big enough and it's strong enough to build up a critical mass of apps which will turn the marketplace. And I really would invite you to look at this just as a consumer for now, on how you as a civil engineer, how are you going to consume these tools, and how do you create more value as a consequence of them, using your critical skills, your critical thinking, your creativity, your training, your skill set, but also the most important thing is the experience, the collective experience that we have within our teams of how do you actually apply that and make that work on the ground. That's, our secret sauce. This is just give you some idea about the scale and the investment involved. The scaling, this guy Emad is worth looking at. He was very successful in building a big AI company, was the CEO of it, jumped ship and decided to build and engineer the opposite of these big data centers. And he's engineering AI that ultimately you'll do it on the phone. It will function on the phone. And it's not an either or which will win. They will both coexist, different types of AI. But what he's looking at is the subject I introduced you to, which was looking at AI and understanding how it functions through words. Okay, so how many words are spoken, and putting those into token sets, if you remember. So you can then start measuring all of this stuff. And so what's interesting there is Emad's pointed out that all our total use of words from it globally, from humanity, is about 50 quadrillion tokens a year. That's how, and we've got very limited speed of speaking, unlike AI. So we're actually quite slow. Google's 12 per year, chat 1 quadrillion a year. And so the generative AI tokens, he's a calculator of today about 17 quadrillion. And that's just going to go fast, and everyone's aiming to get to their point where it's bigger than 50, because then it dominates. And if you look at the mass in terms of the investment that OpenAI just made with partnership with AMD, that gives you some idea of what they're investing to create this infrastructure. If you really want to understand where AI is going, do not ask a data scientist. They'll only know about their field. Follow the money, because the data scientists build whatever they're paid to build, right? But follow the money, because if you put enough of them together and you get the team going, as we saw with what Elon Musk did with OpenAI to begin with, that revolutionized everything, got this thing moving. And where they're all going, follow the money, and that will give you some sense of where it's happening. I think that I'll just touch on, I made a few notes here. I think when you're thinking about this, have a think through what happens when everyone can monetize their own knowledge, whether you're an individual entrepreneur, small business, or a very large one. You're going to start be looking at, well, what's the knowledge which is of most value? And that's why my mantra is it's the knowledge of what works. There's plenty of things that, and just because they work, but they're beneficial doesn't mean they're of value. There's a huge distinction, and that's something that I'll be covering in those 6 stages of the learning program that we're going to be launching to you quite shortly. And I think what would be useful to understand what that looks like. If you think in the older world, we used to think information was valuable. It's not. Data is just useless. It's the metadata. We've all understood that. Metadata is the data that's actually the knowledge of what data is used to generate information. Okay, so you capture the data, you capture the metadata, and you've got the intelligence about what all that that raw data is doing. The equivalent now is this thing of that we need to it's your know-how, it's your practical experiential knowledge on the ground, boots on the ground, having to against all the odds, which are really very difficult to calculate, even with AI, the probability and the variables of whether you can pull off a job, deliver it on time, to budget, and add value impact, which you do. And we're going to start measuring that onto the project itself. And that's why that's the gold. And once you're able to measure that as a company and as a team, it's also then possible to measure that impact that you as an individual have made. And that's what you need to be able to validate and verify, that you as an individual, with everything you've got, including your human attributes, that critical thinking, you had an impact on the project itself, the content, the broader context, the program of work, and the outcome, all the way through to the impact of the general public, is where this can go and where we've got the tools to be able to do that. And that becomes the central to your credentialing. This is the value impact I have created on all my other jobs. So that goes with additional data, verified, and then have a think about what your net worth would be as a team if you could actually validate that. And that's where the dynamic between value capture and AI becomes really interesting, because AI, if you are on top of it, if you're just a consumer of it, your value goes down. But if you're on top of it, where AI is working for you, not the other way around, then you're in a position to supercharge the amount of value impact you can have individually. But then when you put that together as a team, that with that synergistic dynamic with AI involved in that, then just think about that. And to help you do that, I've got a prompt at the end, but I'll just finish off on this point. This was Rabbit. It was the first instance of a bunch of scientists putting together if you like, an architectural layer that would allow AI not just to find information, but where you could give your legal consent with all your credit card details and everything into it, for it to actually act on your behalf with your legal consent. And these guys developed a thing called LAM. That was the architecture, and it was way ahead. And this is what Sam at OpenAI and others have sort of have evolved this program. These guys, a couple $1 million of investment, they'll be history pretty soon. But it's this architectural layer, which actually means that you can do end-to-end business processing that within an ordered and a governed environment. And that's what's going to open up the whole kind of commerce stuff. But their idea is was a simple, low-cost wearable. Didn't even need a phone. That's why it was a couple of $100. And you could talk to it, and it would be your companion. It would be your personal agent with legal authority to act on your behalf. And that's where it's all going. So, final challenge. I haven't given you a prompt this time because I'd really like you to have a go at writing your own. So ask your own, Chat-GPT or your own preferred AI. I'll invite you, if you want to have a more of a philosophical, more of a broader think about this, use Claude. You'll find it much more eloquent in its language. And because you're teasing out one of the implications for civil engineers. CRB. Sorry. Sorry about spelling out. And it will, okay, when, and ask it this simple prompt: what happens when everyone in a team can know everything about anything contextual to the task in hand, boots on the ground in a team? What happens then? Because you'll be starting your meetings where normally you would like them to finish, where you've got some understanding, common understanding, not just of all the facts, but you've got some understanding of the intent. Is everyone on the same page? Is that what we intend to happen through these means, through these actions, through these orchestration of all of the resources that within your command? All right. And what happens then? All right. And just so that you can start teasing out, well, what will that look like? Unpack it. And then you can ask yourself what your point of difference with AI bots that will allow you to create more value. But what's the point of difference? What puts you above AI and not below them? Because below them, you work at AI rates. Not cool. Above them, that's when they work for you and they underpin what you do. But to be in that position, you have to be in command and to do that requires exercising your own human attributes, your critical skills, your critical thinking, your sense making, your nous, your wit, all of those things which you use naturally, but you don't capture the value and you don't get rewarded for those uses as an organization. And that's my job, to help you guys get to that point. So this just was to give you an idea of how fast everything is moving. We're going to be seeing announcements all the time. It's going to move in really, really fast. Everybody, as Tim was saying, will have these tools. So his analogy was where you buy a hammer at Bunnings, pretty easy, cheap, and knowing how to use the hammer. The instructions are pretty straightforward, as they will be with the bot. They're self-explanatory. The bot will show you how to use itself. The point of difference is, can you make something of more value than somebody else using the hammer? What can you fashion as a team? And that's where the game is. And once you do it, do you understand what you did? Did you acquire knowledge through error correction? And if so, that's the gold. Thank you very much. And I look forward to starting our sessions pretty soon. Just stop the recording. See you soon.